time to dive into the For FF's Sake podcast. FF's Sake podcast. The place for your weekly dose of fantasy football advice, breakdown, and debate. Redraft, dynasty, sleepers, and buy or sell candidates. It all gets discussed right here. Now, let's go to your hosts, two guys that say the other is an idiot. Ian Steele and Evan Harris.
What is up? Welcome in. Evan Harris here, and I got some guy across from me or talking with us today all the time, unfortunately.
Hey, when you got a lot of good things to say, you got to say it all the time.
And there's Ian Steele. You're welcome for all the pain, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we are excited for our first episode of the For FF's Sake podcast, hopefully the first of many. Thank you for tuning in. You'll be able to hear us on WCDT radio airwaves and on anywhere you can get your podcasts, right? Just search WCDT in your podcasts and you'll be able to find us there.
I'm sure.
That's exciting.
It is, yeah. I mean, going to go out there and touch a lot of people in a non-predatory way.
That's exactly what I expect from a Florida/Patriot fan. Like all of that.
Hey,
you're just following Kraft's lead there, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to commit the crime, do it properly. None of this dilly-dallying with crab legs like they do in Florida State or whatever. So,
all right. Well, welcome in. We're excited for this show. We got a lot of good stuff for you guys. Well, I have a lot of good stuff for you, and then you're going to get some terrible takes from Ian. But let's jump right into it. No time to waste. Our first segment here, top rookie of week one. This show is going to be completely built around week one. And let's talk about the top rookie plays of week one. We each got one. And if you don't know about the show yet, you're about to learn because we are going to argue everything for fantasy football's sake. That's the whole theme of the show. So what Ian tells you, it's going to be really easy for me to argue against because he's consistently wrong. So Ian, do you want to jump out with your week one rookie?
Yeah, absolutely. But I just want you guys, viewers at home, to reference the championships. I can't be wrong all the time. But anyways, moving on real fast. My first week rookie breakout, or however you want to put it, is actually kind of an out there one. Rondale Moore for the Arizona Cardinals. As we know, Cliff Kingsbury is running the air raid offense, and he's done nothing but talk about that all offseason and the moves he's made. I mean, you draft a guy at 4.29 speed in the third round, I think they took him. It just suggests they're very much a slot receiver. They're going to use him. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald obviously retired. They let Kenyon Drake go in the offseason. So there's a lot of targets there that have been vacated. And it comes up against a good Tennessee team, not the strongest on defense. And I just think that him and Kyler could have a really nice dynamic relationship with Kyler obviously being able to extend the plays and Rondale Moore himself being very athletic and being able to react. And I think he could be a potential strong play week one. So that's mine. So
before I get to mine, I get to kind of give you enough stink that I know you're going to give it back to me twice as hard. But right. Rondale Moore, before I even get into my argument against Rondale Moore for week one, first off, put some respect on the Titans defense name, number one in preseason. All right. That counts for something.
No,
all right. We have retooled.
It counts for nothing.
So here's my main thing, right? Rondale Moore. Now we're talking about guys you're probably going to start in your flex. How many touches / targets do you expect Moore to get week one? Because he's behind three other receivers.
Who? Name the three.
D-Hop.
Okay.
Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
AJ Green.
Absolutely not.
I think he gets out-targeted by all three of those.
Okay. Well, that's where you're wrong. But that's a nice take.
So what's his targets for week one?
He really, the guy of that play, he only needs 4 or 5. And he can do enough damage on those 4 or 5. I mean, you want to talk about your Tennessee Titans. AJ Brown, his rookie year, would get 4 or 5, maybe 6 quality targets.
Yep.
Short yardage, short ADOT, which is what Kyler Murray lives off. He doesn't throw it deep, which is why I'm not worried about Christian Kirk. And AJ Green's just going to be a distraction out there, like he was in Cincinnati last season. I'm not really worried about him. What I think where Rondale's going to eat is in the broken plays where Kyle is going to spin out wide. He doesn't dump it off to his running back because who is he throwing it to? Really, he's going to chuck it off to Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore is going to do the business after the fact. So, I mean, and like you said, in the flex, I'm only really worried about 10 to 14 points, and I'm happy. So I don't see him. I think he can get that pretty comfortably on 4 or 5 catches.
I mean, AJ Green was 104 target distraction, if that's what you're saying, including 9 targets in week 1. But,
but how many times was Joe Burrow throwing it? He's not getting 104 targets this season.
No, definitely not.
I guarantee you that.
I won't argue that.
He gets 80. That'll be a high number for him this season because he won't play all year. Anyways, we're not talking about AJ Green.
All right. Well, I'll give you credit for going for a guy that I don't think most people jump out and say Rondale Moore. That's an easy play for week 1. My easy play for week 1. I don't think the matchup matters. I don't think anything matters except for volume, and that's what Najee Harris is going to get in this Pittsburgh Steelers offense week 1. He's going to come out rookie backs. I think the stat is, I'm going to get this wrong. I should have looked it up before the show. The last 3 years, there's been a rookie back in the top 5 backs, and it's typically somebody that is either an early back or just out of nowhere. James Robinson was a guy last year that really broke out as a rookie, and every year there's rookie backs. We know that. That's no exaggeration, but I think Najee Harris is that guy this year. And I think Najee Harris is a guy that, look, he's going to get, if he gets somewhere between 16 and 19 carries, he's going to get somewhere between probably 4 and 6 targets, I think. I really do think he's that guy that he's going to get the dump offs. I don't think Pittsburgh's offensive line is great, and I do think that's going to help him get some more targets away from some of those other receiving threats that typically will get targeted by Big Ben. I think Najee could come out week 1 and, no exaggeration, be a guy that hit the scene like Kareem Hunt or even CEH last year. CEH had a big week 1 last year. Everybody wasn't ready for him. I think Najee Harris is a guy that I expect to go 18 points plus, and you can play him comfortably as an RB2 week 1.
Sure. And I mean, I don't hate that take, but that is what you draft him to be, is your RB2. He's not a guy that you're in the position to flex. So it is a bit of a cop-out take, a little bit, but it is a tough
When you
matchup.
draft like me, he's a flex. I can't help it.
Yeah, okay. You are the worst drafter I've ever met, and you know that. Anyways, it's a tough matchup at Buffalo. It's a good defense. It's a good team. I don't disagree with the potential target there. Obviously, I think he's competing mostly with Juju for those short yardage targets. I think you'll see a lot of Deontay Johnson and a lot of Chase Claypool as more of your gadget guy, as you want to put it. I think Najee is going to be fine, but I honestly think that I would say 17 points is a lot, and even half-point PPR, it's a lot of points. I don't know if that game is going to be conducive to that. It's going to be it's week 1. It's tough. It's going to be a tight game. The only thing you got to hope for Najee is if Buffalo come out firing early, then Pittsburgh are going to have to put the pedal down. But if they keep it tight with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary and they try and play it slow, then I think Buffalo get a low-scoring win in week 1. So that will cap Najee's potential a little bit. Whereas I think the reason why I'm high on Rondale in week 1, if you're not in a position to play someone else, is because I think that's going to be a high-scoring game between the Titans and the Cardinals. So
here's one off the cuff, kind of closer to an ADP of a Rondale Moore. What about Elijah Moore for week 1? I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. You got Jets and the Panthers. Nobody wants to play defense in that one.
Yeah, shocking defenses. 2 new quarterbacks trying to prove themselves. So, and I think Darnold against his old team is going to have something to prove. Yeah, it's not a bad take. I prefer that to Najee. It's a similar ilk to Rondale as far as a guy you might be forced to play if maybe you've say you drafted J.K. Dobbins and now you have to bump your flex running back up to your starting position, and then you have a lower drafted receiver that you need to play in the flex. So I don't mind that. He's done some good stuff in what looks like an offseason. So, but the Jets just stink, man. I mean, until they don't, they do. So we'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of potential there this season, and there's a lot of hype coming out of offseason, but that seems to be every year. So,
All right. So we'll get to our next segment here. This is going to be sus or nah. All right. Guys that you think they're really suspect, I'm not going to start them, or guys that even though I'm not explaining that right. Let me back up. All right. Guys that are in the starting lineup, they have been on the official depth chart. They're top 1, top 2 on the depth chart, but you just don't quite believe in, or you do, and why. All right.
Yeah.
I'll let you started off the last one, so I'll do the honors on this one. I'm going to argue for this player. This is a guy who is slotted as the team's RB1. Okay. I'm not saying he is an RB1, but I think this is a guy you can start in your flex and feel confident that he can get you around that 10 to 12 point range that you really want out of your flex. That's your floor. That's your safe place. That's okay, I can breathe a little bit. My flex didn't completely crap the bed for me this week. That player, RB1 for a team that is bringing over a rushing scheme in a high scoring game. You just agreed that it's going to be a high scoring game. Tevin Coleman, New York Jets.
Are you a closet Jets fan?
No.
It would make sense because obviously you lose as much as they do. So that would make sense. But
all right,
I'm just wondering. You're wearing green. It's all kind of fitting. It's fitting.
Oh gosh. Hear my take real quick, and then I'll get to hear you tell me why you think I'm wrong. Okay. Here's the take. I'm not taking Tevin Coleman all season long. Actually, Tevin Coleman's a guy, if you get him in Dynasty, you want to sell as quick as you can after week 1. Because I do think that Michael Carter and Ty Johnson could possibly take carries from him. But I'm not worried about Ty Johnson and Michael Carter week 1. I'm just not. Michael Carter cannot pass block for nothing. And when you have a rookie quarterback, you can't put him on the field. Same thing happened to Derrick Henry early in his career. You couldn't put him on the field with a young quarterback and Marcus Mariota at the time because he couldn't pass block. He couldn't pass protect at all. So Carter, I'm not really worried about for week 1. Ty Johnson has always been a backup running back, and I'm not as scared of that. I think Coleman is a guy who he's electric when he touches the ball, and he's healthy. He's healthy right now. Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, came over from the 49ers, very familiar with Coleman. They signed Coleman once upon a time to be the guy. He just couldn't stay healthy. Had some really big games. They also bring over Matt LaFleur, who's going to bring a similar style offense, another Shanahan disciple, the brother of Mike LaFleur. So I really think Coleman's a guy. Look, 15 carries week 1. He gets 3 targets. He turns those carries into 60 yards and a touchdown, maybe add another 20 yards receiving. That's a guy that shocks you week 1 because I don't think anybody's really expecting him to do more than 5 or 6 points. I think his projection last I looked on Sleeper in a league we're both in was like 8 points, and that league shoots projections pretty high because of how the scoring set. I think Tevin Coleman, he's a 12-point hitter week 1.
No.
No, that's no.
I mean, the guy's 20, 28, I think knocking on 29. I think his knees are 34. He hasn't been viable for probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years, as far as a fantasy prospect. And again, it's a Jets offense. I mean, if you have the balls to roll out any Jets players in week 1, you have my respect. I'm going to question everything that you do from week 1 on, if that's what you're going to roll out. Or I'm going to say, well, he's giving up early. I mean, he's just donating the money this season and whatever. I mean, you don't draft a Jets player to play week 1. I know it's a nice matchup against Carolina, but again, I think Zach Wilson's he's gonna want to call his number. He's gonna want to show that he can do it on the next level. And I think, although I agree with you, Michael Carter is not the pass pro running back. I actually think he'll outscore Tevin Coleman week 1 because of third down and receiving work. So because Coleman, he won't score a touchdown. So you need him to get 100 yards and a couple catches. And I don't think he's getting 100 yards. He might get 70, which is why I think he's about where he needs to be at 8 points.
Who carries the goal line in that? Because Zach Wilson, he's mobile.
But they won't get to the goal line, so I'm not worried about it.
You just said it was going to be a high-scoring game. Is it all going to be deep shots?
Field goals.
If you play in a league with kickers still, first off, shame on you. Second off.
No, I'm not a kicker. I do, unfortunately, play in a couple leagues that are so antiquated that kickers are still believed to be people. But I'm not one of those guys, and I petitioned for them to be removed. I'd rather have an IDP. But anyways, I digress. Yeah, I'm out on Coleman personally. I'm out on the Jets.
Just right. I'll play my sneaky play week 1. I'll be all right.
Yeah. And then when you're losing and you're crying about it, and he's put up 7.8 points, you come and apologize to me.
Okay, we'll have to do a report card show. Report card show coming up. TC.
Yeah, perfect. Well, my guy is a guy that you can actually lean on, but the reason why people and the hat might give you a clue who I'm about to reference. But my guy's Damian Harris. Damian Harris, running back for the New England Patriots. Now, if we'd have done this a week ago, I'd have been a little bit cooler on him because of Cam and just the situation as a whole. But I think with Cam clearing out, everything is a little bit more clear, and people want to hate on Patriots running back situation. But we've always had a goal line guy that you can rely on. Guys like LeGarrette Blount, Benjamin Green-Ellis, guys like that. We've always had a ground and pound guy, assuming they're healthy. Because Brady can't, well, unless it's on the 1 yard line, Brady's not punching it in. He's not scrambling out and running it in. And so there is value there in the Patriots running back core. We've been pretty convoluted the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years with a lot of guys, much like the Texans are this year. But when we run into this season, we've got Damien Harris, we have James White, and we have a couple young bucks who are really just backing up. So Damian Harris's value is just skyrocketed for me. He was a decent stash last season when he had the volume, and he's a good player. He's a better version of Sonny Michel for me. So now that Cam's out of town, he's going to get all the goal line looks. And I think we're much better suited this season to get more of those. So I think he's going to surprise a lot of people, not just week 1, but throughout the season. There's going to be guys who wish they drafted him in the 5th, 6th round later on in the season.
All right. So this is where the name of the show comes into play, because I actually like the take a little bit. I'm not going to give you a whole lot. All right. I think Damian Harris is a solid flex play week 1. You drafted him. What was his ADP, like round 7 or 8, somewhere in that range?
It depended on format, but yeah, anywhere from, I think, 6 to 8, I think, depending on format. Obviously, standard leagues, he was a little higher. And again, when you drafted him, because as soon as Cam goes out town, his ADP skyrocketed. So.
All right, so the show is called For FF's Sake. So I'm going to argue this for fantasy football's sake. If you are unsure about Damian Harris, I'm going to tell you why you're right and you shouldn't start him, okay? First thing, we like acronyms on this show. For FF's sake, fantasy football. You cannot trust a BBRB, a Bill Belichick running back. 1 week they'll score 15. The next they'll score 2. 1 week they get 30 carries. The next week they're on the practice squad for no apparent reason because Bill Belichick in his crazy smart football mind decided I'm going to outsmart everybody and do what I want this week. Like it's on the verge of Sean Payton starting Taysom Hill last year. Okay. It's just that maniacal mind. So there's the small part of my argument. Second part of my argument is James White's value. And I hate saying this because you got him in a league that we're in together, but James White value, although I don't want to buy him, I think his value in touches goes up in that offense because of a guy like Mac Jones. James White, although, I mean, he's a guy that's sniffing 30 probably. He's up there in age, right? Somewhere?
No, I don't think so. I think he's only 20, 28, 27. I'll tell you real quick. He's not that old.
Okay. Well, while you're looking that up, I think that he's going to get a lot of those drop downs. I don't think Damian Harris gets anything more than 1 or 2 catches for like 8 yards. Like that's going to be his receiving threat. And I think that he's a guy that.
I just turned 29. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. So just turned 29. I don't think Damian Harris is going to be a guy that is going to get all the carries. They have a lot of talent in that backfield. JJ Taylor is a guy that I think has talent and I think will get carries in the offense. I think James White's going to get some touches. I think that when you get into the red zone, which is where Damian Harris is projected to make his money. Yeah. Well, they paid 2 tight ends a whole bunch of money and it's not just to block. Okay. Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry. Is that right? Hunter Henry?
Yep. Hunter Henry. Yep.
Two tight ends that are very good in the red zone. Bill Belichick knows all about that because one cheek equals 2 feet. And he learned that when the Titans played the Patriots in the playoffs and Johnny Smith had like one cheek touchdown. My Titans fans will know what I'm talking about. Patriots fans wish they didn't. I think that those guys are going to be easy targets for Mac Jones in his rookie debut. And I think they could steal. It's not a goal line carry, but you're getting what I'm talking about, that goal line threat of touchdowns, red zone touchdowns. So
Sure.
That would be my argument against it. Although I don't hate it. If I had Damian Harris, he'd probably be starting my flex week 1, unless I just had a stacked team because I played 18 football.
Sure. Yeah. And that's a fair take. The only riposte I would have a little bit on the James White take was his best season in fantasy. He peaked at 12 carries. So that was in 2018 when he finishes the RB6. So he's not a guy that's going to steal a whole, and he only made double-digit carries twice that season. So he's all about receiving work. So I agree that Damian Harris isn't going to make his money on catches, but that's fine. In my flex, my RB3, because what I probably have, he's probably my RB3 if I drafted him early. I'm okay with that. If I can get 80, 90 yards and a TD, that's fine. So
throw one, just because we have some time, I'm going to throw another guy in here. That is someone who is, he's listed as the top player on the depth chart at his position, but a guy you should probably avoid. That guy for me is going to be, drumroll, Mark Ingram or Philip Lindsay. I guess they're 1A, 1B.
Anybody in that team, just avoid.
Just Houston, avoid Houston.
Yep.
You're avoiding Nico Collins?
In
Brandon Cooks?
Yeah. Who's throwing him the ball?
Tyrod Taylor.
Okay. Mr. Wanlung, I'm not interested.
Hold on. Buffalo Bills made the playoffs before Josh Allen. Tyrod Taylor was that quarterback. He had a wide receiver 1 on that team.
Still not interested.
I think he finished as like RB 8 that year, something crazy.
I'm still not interested.
Could you imagine being the poor
He
sap?
looks like a Wines brother, and with the hair right now, and I just can't trust the guy that can't get his hair. Like, he looks like a budget Cam Newton, and he plays like a budget Cam Newton. So I just don't want anything to do with that team. I just don't. I mean, yeah.
I think about this stuff sometimes in Dynasty. Can you imagine the guy that bought Tyrod Taylor after his like RB or quarterback like 8 seasons? I got to look at what he actually finished as. Oh, Tyrod. I got to look at it because he led the Bills. He finished as quarterback 9 in standard leagues in 2016. Can you imagine the guy that bought him in the offseason and thought he had got a steal and then just like to pay everything, especially in Superflex, because somebody had to buy him. Just random thought there.
Yeah, so, I agree. But I luckily, I think most people weren't playing Dynasty in 2016, so they didn't have to worry about that.
I'm sure there was somebody.
There was somebody.
We know a guy. We know a guy, actually. We play in a league with a guy who's been playing since like 1932, I think. So back to the topic, though. Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay, I know you're going to look at depth charts. There's guys out there, they play redraft, and they're like, this guy's starting. He's a running back, and he's starting. I should play him. I should pick him up. No, don't do it. You're just asking for pain. Don't start those guys. If I had to play one of them, it would probably be Ingram, just because I think he might get a goal line touch if they can cross the 50 at any point in the year.
No. Why are you're giving bad advice? It's our first show. Nobody's going to subscribe.
I'm just, if I had to, if I was in like an 18 league team.
No. 8-team league. What? 18 team
league. There you go.
Yeah, maybe. If you're in a 32-team league redraft, then feel free to start Mark Ingram. You might get 6 points. Maybe.
That would be
if he catches 3 balls.
You got another random guy for us on the guys that are up there on the depth chart that you probably would avoid. We'll talk some avoid.
Who avoid on the depth chart? Random. I'm trying to think of some really bad offenses. You know what? Anybody that isn't Devontae Adams for the Green Bay Packers as a wide receiver, just don't play him. You never know which one to play. Don't do it. And this season, you're going to see a lot more Robert Tonyan. So don't play Alan Lazard. Don't play Marquise Valdez-Scantling. Don't play Amari Rogers. Just, you're not smart. You're being stupid. Stop it. Don't do it. Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, Robert Tonyan, and Aaron Rodgers, and that's it. Nobody else.
But one of them have to score a touchdown, Ian.
All of those will score touchdowns. Nobody else will. Equanimous St. Brown? No. He's not even the best in his family.
I don't think he's on the team. I think he got cut.
Equanimous? I think he is.
Did he get cut?
I know that the big man got cut.
Oh, Kumaro?
No, Jake Kumaro? No, not him.
He'd been cut for a few years.
No, the one from the one that was at Carolina for a minute. I forget his name now.
Oh, I don't know. Devin Funchess.
Funchess, yeah.
Bunches of Funchess. Good fantasy name for like 1 year.
Bunches of Funchess.
All right, so we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Now we're going to talk about your top plays of the week. I think that was the next topic. I didn't write it down. So here we go. Week one jitters. Yeah, top plays of the week. We're going to give you one guy that is a lock. If you have him, there's no reason he should not be in your starting lineup, no matter how deep your team is. And then we're going to give you a sleeper, a guy that we think in a pinch for week one could be someone who could play really well. We kind of already touched a little bit on sleepers when we talked about those guys on the depth chart, but we're going to reach back into that bag. Start us off, Ian. I don't care if you start with your sleeper or your lock, whoever you want to go with.
I'm going to go with a lock and let people simmer on the sleeper. I mean, for me, it's going to be a lock for all season, obviously, but Alvin Kamara is my lock. He has a nice matchup in week one against Green Bay. Last season, he put up, I think it was 40 and a half point PPR points on like 6 carries. So he just did him dirty in the air. Couple TDs, 140 yards, I think, through the air. They haven't really got any better on defense. And one thing to note, Alvin Kamara without Michael Thomas is around a 30-point a game average in fantasy. So his projection is probably around the 20, depending on your format, between 18 and 25, depending on your format. But I would say he's a lock for the top end of that, in my opinion, against a questionable Green Bay defense, but a good offense. It's going to be a great game. It's in a neutral venue. That's one I'm looking forward to this week. So Alvin Kamara is my lock, and he will be all season.
All right. So my only argument, look, you can't argue against Kamara, right? If you have him in your league, you're starting him. So the really only argument I would present this from is if you're playing daily fantasy, DFS, and you're thinking on Kamara. So I like Kamara. I really do. But if you're building a DFS team and you're thinking I can go a little cheaper on running back, that would be my argument against that. The other argument would be it is a new quarterback, although it is not Taysom Hill, who's going to run the ball all the time. It is a new quarterback. It is a new year. Some of the changes scare me. I would much rather go with a guy that I know is going to be everything's the same or as much as the same, like a Dalvin Cook or even a Derrick Henry or somebody like that. But that's the only place logically I could argue that from is from a DFS standpoint, because if you have him in redraft dynasty, you're going to start him. So sure. That's a good play. And I do think he's going to have a good week one.
Yep.
All right. So my lock for week one, and I think this is probably an easier one to argue against just because he is playing an interesting matchup. But my lock for week one is Scary Terry McLaurin. All right. Scary Terry McLaurin. And here's why. Ryan Fitzpatrick understands the quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick has produced multiple wide receiver ones in his time as a quarterback. He made Devontae Parker a wide receiver one, for crying out loud. Okay. So other guys you can think of that you don't remember because they were that irrelevant before Fitzpatrick made them wide receiver ones. So I think that he is going to lock onto McLaurin. I think the fact that Curtis Samuel's just getting back into the swing of things, I do think Curtis Samuel will start. But I think that they're going to have him on a pitch count. And I think he's going to be a guy that the first sign of any fatigue or any hindrance, they're going to pull him out because they want him for the season. You're competing at that point for targets with the likes of Diamy Brown and Adam Humphries, who could have a concussion on the second play, right? That's just how Adam Humphries plays. Logan Thomas.
Budget Wes Welker.
Yeah. So Logan Thomas is going to get targets, but it should not scare you away from the number one receiving option in this offense. Going up against the Chargers, I understand Derwin James is back, but it's his first game back. If you're going to pick against the Chargers defense, this is the time to do it. I think Terry McLaurin has a statement game week 1.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, you say it's an easier one to argue against. It's not that easy because I like Terry McLaurin a lot. And I think a lot of people underestimate his speed because he's a bigger body receiver. They underestimate just how fast he is. And that's why he's such a headache for even the best corners in the league, because from a pace standpoint, if you even remotely try and press him, he's going to burn you on the outside, and then he gets those chunk plays. And so he's relevant in one play. He's a relevant weekly play. So I think, it's going to be a good game. And I agree. There's other options there. Obviously, Antonio Gibson. I know you're high on him. He's not a receiving option, but J.D. McKissick is going to be there. But we know that Fitzmagic doesn't try to dump it off too often, so that does sort of cap his potential. I think Diamy Brown, actually, if you want to refer to a rookie, is a very, very deep sleeper, but he's a guy that might be relevant deeper in the season, especially if Curtis Samuel's injuries resurface. But I like Terry McLaurin. It's a good defense he's coming up against, but he's an elite and really an elite talent. So I don't think it's going to be too much to expect him to have a big week. So
we got to get to these sleepers so we can stop agreeing so much, because this is some crap right here. All right, so sleepers. You want me to go with my sleeper first?
Yeah, you go first.
Oh man,
I'm feeling very argumentative, so go ahead.
I'm so excited for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, this is the sleeper you need. And I'll go past week 1. This is the sleeper for the season. And I think I'm going to be on a pitch count of how many times I can mention this guy's name. So I got to get it in while I can, because Ian's not going to want him on the show every week.
Unless he's
Watkins.
On the show.
I mean, yeah, we can get him on the show. Quez frickin' Watkins. And you're asking yourself, who is Quez Watkins? If you don't know, then you're sleeping too hard. Quez Watkins, here's why he's a sleeper for week 1, because they play Atlanta. If you've played redraft or dynasty the last few years, and you've started guys like Travis Fulgham, who, by the way, isn't on the Philadelphia Eagles team anymore. He's on the practice squad. You've started guys like Greg Ward, who has produced some solid weeks. He's played at really high levels at some points, back-to-back 15, 16-point weeks. He's not going to be in the starting lineup anymore. It's going to be Quez Watkins, and here's why Quez Watkins is so dynamic. He's a guy coming out of college, 4.3 guy, 4.3, 4.39, 4.41. I think was his 40s.
You're talking about speed, not height. Okay, just checking, because he's kind of short, so I'm just making sure.
Actually, I don't know how tall he is. Now you're going to make me look. You're going to mess me up in the middle of my glorious Quez Watkins talk.
Hey,
he's 6'2". He's 6'2". So anyways, here's why I really got on to Quez Watkins. Devontae Smith had an injury in camp, right? Who was the guy who was practicing all offseason with Jalen Hurts, the starter? And everybody knows Jalen Hurts' work ethic. I don't know what he's going to be as an NFL quarterback, but he's an insane worker. Always has been.
Is he the starter?
Huh? Jalen Hurts?
The starter, yeah, they just brought in. Didn't they just trade for?
They traded for a backup.
They traded for the mustache.
Yeah, a backup mustache, and a glorious one at that. We don't want to get on that. But he was the number one guy. If you go look back at reports, he was the guy that was working out all summer with Hurts. Their timing is impeccable. You go back to that first preseason game where they let Watkins play a little bit, because after that, they shut him down. They couldn't let him play anymore. 79-yard touchdown on a screenplay. He almost had a 99-yard touchdown that Hurts just missed him on, like literally just past the fingertips. Would have been a 99-yard touchdown. Would have had 2 catches, 100 and that would have been 160 or 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I understand it was preseason, but both team starters were playing, so I don't care. Quez Watkins is going to come out and shock some people week 1. He will have a touchdown. I'll say it right now. Quez Watkins will have a touchdown. If Quez Watkins does not have a touchdown in week 1, I will wear a Patriots hat in one of our shows the next few weeks.
Perfect. And that's a perfect bet, because I have
But you have to wear a Titans hat. I'll send it to you.
No.
So do you want to take that bet? If Quez Watkins,
if he scores a touchdown in week 1,
yep.
Who are they
have
playing?
To wear a Titans hat.
The Falcons.
Huh?
Fine.
Playing the
Fine.
Falcons.
I'll take that bet.
All right, now tell me why.
I'm gonna wear like a tea towel underneath it, though. I don't want to touch my skin.
All right, so tell me why you think that's incorrect.
Because
over the boat. Missed.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. They're garbage. They're like the northern version of the Houston Texans. Like they're all trash. They're so convoluted. They've got 2 bang average quarterbacks, 2 bang average running backs. Their receiver core is a mess. Like realistically, their best player is injured and 160 pounds. And then they overreached on Jalen Reagor. Their receiver core is just like, it's just set up for disappointment. It's like most of your redraft leagues. They're just a roster full of impending disappointment and injury. Because we know that you get injured and disappointed pretty dang regularly.
My injury streak has been pretty I need to go on down to Louisiana and figure out what's going on here. I'm cursed.
Do some shrubs or burn some essence or something to figure out that juju. But yeah, Quez Watkins. I mean, seriously, you did it for me at the beginning. Who? I don't need to say much more than that. Who?
It's gonna make it that much sweeter.
He's like even. You think he's number 2 on the roster?
He's not. He is the starting slot on the roster.
Okay.
For a team that runs 3 receiver sets 87% of the time.
2 tight ends are going to be the main 2 targets. Then you got Jalen Reagor. It's just too convoluted. I mean, I feel pretty dang confident about that bet. So I'm looking forward to seeing you finally in some good attire. So yeah, just not interested. Not interested in the Eagles at all this season. They're worse than the Texans because they pretend to be good at football and they just disappoint you all that more. You know what I mean? Like, because you're drafting guys like Hurts early, guys like Sanders in early. You're not drafting Texans at all, so they don't disappoint you. But Philadelphia Eagles disappoint you regularly. So yeah, I'm out on the Eagles.
Unless you pick them up off the waiver and play them the last 3 weeks of the season.
Sure, but that's fine. That's a good way to do it. That's what you need to do, listeners. Pick up Watkins week 14 when Rager's hurt, Devonta Smith's hurt, Fulgham's hurt, everybody else. Then pick him up, and then you might get
practice squad.
Yeah, but he's going to come. He'll get pulled up when Smith gets hurt, and so on. I'm saying, it's a long play. Okay. It's a long play.
Week 1.
Yeah. Harsh. That's hot garbage take, but it's okay.
Who's your sleeper? Who's your sleeper? It's probably somebody who's actually like a wide receiver too, but who's your sleeper?
It's not even really a sleeper. I mean, he's the number 1 receiver on a good offense. Michael Pittman Jr. Hardly knew her. He's obviously with T.Y. Hilton on IR now for 4 or 5 weeks. He is the number 1, undisputed. They have no tight ends really to speak of. So it's really going to be Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor and maybe a little bit of Nyheim Hines sprinkled in there. And that's your offense. And they're going up against Tennessee. So it's going to be a good game. Right? Tennessee?
No.
Who are they playing?
Let
me look that up. They are playing Seattle. So it's going to be, so I stand by my take. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a decent. I don't think Seattle had the defense they once did. So a few years ago, I'd be lower on this take, but now their defense is iffy. So it should be a high scoring game. I can see Pittman and DK duking it out for most yardages in the game, and it should be a fun one to watch.
So here's my thing. Pittman is by most viewed as like a wide receiver 3, a flex. So if you're calling him a sleeper, where are you expecting him to finish week 1? Are you expecting wide receiver 1 week out of him?
Well, I guess I could see a high end wide receiver 2 week. I don't think he's. Yeah, I mean, I guess most people are considering him like a wide receiver 3. Again, kind of like my Damian Harris take. The Hilton news boosts his output, but I could see him knocking on the door of receiver 1, but high end receiver 2. I think that's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a high scoring game.
I just wanted you to establish the level so I can tell you you're wrong as we come on next week, because sure. I do think that's a bad take. And here's why. I'm actually going to solidly argue against Pittman week 1. I don't even have to do it for fantasy football's sake. Okay. Here's why Pittman's a bad play week 1. They're going to be missing a starting left tackle, Sam Tevi, who just got injured. He's out for the season last week. You have I would say probably one of the best guards in football. That's pretty unanimous, who's just coming back off a foot surgery where he has not practiced for like 5 to 6 weeks. I think at one point it was going to be a 5 to 12 week injury, but I believe he is going to play week 1. He's still questionable. Carson Wentz, who is on a new team, not necessarily in a new system because he's played with Frank White before, but he's so far removed from the MVP level that Colts fans and ESPN want to put Wentz in. He's not at that level. It's kind of like what you said earlier. Until we can see it, I can't believe it. And that's where I'm at with Wentz. Wentz, for the last several years, has been a guy who makes terrible adjustments, doesn't go through his progressions, runs way too early, and doesn't have the same athleticism he had before his injuries. So I'm out on Wentz, and because of that, I'm out on any of his targets. I think
need him to go through progressions when his number one target is Michael Pittman.
So that's where I'm getting at. Pittman, for me, is not everybody wants to boost second-year receivers, and I get that. It's a trend, and it works a lot of the time. But for me, Pittman is not a wide receiver 1. And I think once he starts getting the attention of a wide receiver 1, because there's no other good – it's a take for a wide receiver 3 from the standpoint of there's not many other players that are going to take targets from him unless there's a Paris Campbell breakout finally that we've been asking for 3 years, or the 6th round pick, Strawn, who's only been playing football for like 3 years. I know who he is, but most NFL defenses don't care who he is because he's not going to be relevant. I think that team's going to come out. They're going to try to run the ball. I think Mac, JT, and Hines all get touches. I think Hines will probably lead the team in receptions because it's going to have to be a bunch of drop-offs if Wentz is smart enough to do that. I don't think they're going to have time for Pittman to get down the field. A player to watch out for in this game from Seattle's defense is Darrell Taylor. Darrell Taylor, a 3rd-round pick out of Tennessee a year ago. I'm not trying to be a homer, but here's a guy who came through injury last year, had to sit out. His first preseason action had 2.5 tackles for loss and a sack and like 2 drives of play. I think he's going to be a force off the edge along with some of those other defenders. And I don't believe in the Colts. The Colts, I would rather have pieces, and this is going to make me sound so bad, but it's just the truth, right? I would rather have pieces of the Jets offense or even Houston's offense before I want any of the pieces from the Colts offense at their current ADP, because I want to specify that. Jonathan Taylor is a very talented back, not taking anything away from him, but had his ADP with the injuries on that offensive line and with Carson Wentz, who apparently no running back, no matter what their talent is, can succeed around lately. I just don't want him at his current ADP. So that's my argument. That's more of a rant than an argument, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
It was. I'll let you run with it. I mean, and you'll be proven wrong again. I can't wait to see.
Right. Huh?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to you coming. I'm going to serve you up some humble pie here next week with results of these takes. But there's some good points made there, I would say. But at the end of the day, Wentz, I don't even need him to be MVP caliber. Phillip Rivers was hot garbage last year, and he still produced solid wide receiver weeks for that offense. So if Wentz is 20% better than Phillip Rivers, which I believe he is, even at his floor, then I'm not worried. I think Pittman can be a strong producer season long. And his ADP is low. Jonathan Taylor, I can kind of get on board with. His ADP is in the double digit round. So for his cost, for what you're getting, at least the first, I think, is TY out for 5 weeks, 6 weeks?
Yep.
Yeah. For the first 6 weeks, I mean, he's a lock flex play with high end wide receiver 2 upside. That's my point. So I'm not totally disagreeing with your arguments or rants or however you want to put it to the people, but you are wrong.
I felt that one
inherently. You're wrong
in my soul. Couldn't fight that one.
Inherently, you're wrong, which is going to be a trend that you, the listeners, are going to hear long term here, hopefully.
You know, this isn't something we've talked about, but I feel like there's going to have to be a report card live stream that we do, like Sunday evening or something. Report card on why Ian was so wrong, or why Evan just happened to miss because of some
A+
weird.
A+. A for effort.
All righty. Ian, do you have anything else? Because we're getting really close to where we're going to wrap up.
No, I'm just happy to be here. Looking forward to a strong season. Glad football's back, and welcome in, guys, and hopefully you enjoy what we're putting out there, and you're gonna be along for the ride long term. So I'm looking forward to where this is gonna take us.
Yeah, we're gonna work out some kinks. This was our first show. We haven't even done a dummy show, so this is it. This is the dummy show.
Which is ironic because we got a big dummy on the other end of it.
I was going to let you have that joke. I let you have it. I eased off. But catch us wherever you catch podcasts. Again, you can search WCDT radio on Apple Podcast. You'll be able to find us there. It will be titled For FF's Sake. You can also find us on YouTube or anywhere social media. We have Instagram. We have TikTok. We'll have TikToks coming soon. Twitter. Follow our Twitter. That's probably where I'll be most active, to be honest. But it's For FF. Put an S there. Sake. For FF's sake.
Exactly.
Right? Everywhere.
Yep, that's it. Everywhere you can find us.
Comment. Leave us some chats. Hey, we want your
Feedback,
your participation.
Yeah. This is a show we're doing for you guys. We're not doing it for us because you couldn't pay me to spend my evenings with this guy. So we're doing it for you guys. One of us is good at fantasy football. The other is not. It's kind of like a good cop, bad cop situation. We kind of give you guys both ends of the spectrum.
Oh, golly.
Literally and figuratively. I'll leave that up to your imagination. But yeah, it's we're looking forward to it. It's gonna be a fun journey for both of us and hopefully for you guys too. So
all right, that's all we got. Hit the outro.
Thank you for listening. Follow For FF's Sake on all social media platforms and search for us wherever you get your podcasts.